Hi and welcome to Poly Originals with Fiona Abel-Smith. Today's tutorial is based on a Kaleidoscope cane that I posted on Instagram and Facebook a few weeks ago, and I had so many comments on it asking about it and how to do it and everything else that I decided to do it as a quick tutorial for you. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm only showing you the cane. What you decide to do with it is up to you. The equipment you need for this tutorial is very straightforward. Polymer clay blade, I sometimes refer to these as tissue blades, a craft knife, small clay roller. I use a cable needle just to smooth between clay slices when I put them down, but anything along those lines or a smoothing tool will work well. This is a 4mm cable needle. To smooth over the veneer when we've done it, I will use a stainless steel soap. If you don't have one of these, then just simply use your clay roller instead. That'll work just as well. To keep the veneer nice and clean and smooth when we're doing our burnishing of it, I'm just going to use a little piece of this easy leave sheet. Cling film again will work just as well if you've got that. So whatever you've got to hand, just to help protect it. And both to work on and to put our veneer on, I'm going to use one of these laminated measuring sheets. I get mine, they're freely downloadable from www.printablepaper.net. I use the inch one, and I say I've simply laminated it, but obviously you can get them in centimetres as well. And that is it, apart from wet wipes and tissues, and of course a pasta machine dedicated to polymer clay use. If you don't have a pasta machine, you can do all the techniques, but simply use the roller to roll out where I say put it through the pasta machine. So that's it for the equipment. Let's move on to the clay we need. When I'm deciding the amounts to use for clay in my designs, I will generally start with the idea of the whole pack being 2 ounces. Then I'll cut it into sort of like 1 ounce pieces, cut off in quarters, then smaller bits, and then smaller bits. And this ends up being about 1/8 of an ounce or 3.5 grams. And these are amounts, the multiplications of these are what I usually do when I'm making my designs. So if I say one of those is 1, and then when I take you onto the clay I'm actually using, if I say 3 of these, 4 of these, 5 of these, that gives you a rough idea if you're starting from a new pack how much to use. So to move on to the actual clay we're using today, I'm using Fimo Soft, but any well-known brand of polymer clay will work well for this technique. So going back to the slices, as you can see here, I've put them into that sort of size. I've got 3 of this one, 6 of that one, 5, etc, etc, and I'll go through it all as we go. So starting off with the tangerine, I've got 3 slices of that, or it's about 1/3 of an ounce or 10 grams. Then we've got the lemon yellow, which is 6 slices, or about 3/4 of an ounce or 21 grams. With the white, we've got 5 slices, or about 17 grams, or 2/3 of an ounce. For the apple green and the lavender, we've got 1/2 ounce, or about 14 grams, and 4 of those slices. For the peppermint and the mint, we've got 2 slices, or 1/4 ounce, or 7 grams. And then for the large amount of Windsor blue, which we're going to use to go round the outside and to pack any gaps, we've got 12 of those slices, which is actually 1.5 ounces, or about 42 grams. So what you need to do now is to actually separate these into these amounts of each colour. I'm going to put the Windsor blue to one side. I've put it down into 3 sets because it's just easier to do a small amount at a time, and then you've got an easier bit to use when we start to wrap it around the other canes. So I'll put those to one side, but condition these at the same time as you do all the rest. For these ones, we're going to mix them up into various Skinner blends. So we're going to do a tangerine with the yellow and just 1 piece of the white. We're going to do a blend of the green and the yellow. We're going to do a blend of the 2 blues. We're going to do a blend of the lavender and the white, and then the remaining colours, so the green, the yellow, the white, and the lavender is going to be another Skinner blend. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Skinner blends. So I'm going to start with doing this tangerine, lemon yellow and white mix, and then show you slightly more detail doing a Skinner blend on that one, and then the other ones I'll simply say get the Skinner blend done at this stage. So let's start with these 3 colours. When I get them conditioned, I put them all through on a medium setting of my pasta machine. Start with the lightest colours first and work up to the darker ones. And I put them all through on setting 3, which is the medium setting on my pasta machine. And on my pasta machine, 0 is thick and 9 is thin. So I get all of these thoroughly conditioned in their individual colours and bring you back, and we'll start to do the Skinner blend on this one. For the first one, most of the colour wants to be this tangerine, then we're going to have it blending down nicely into yellow, just with a little bit of white on the end. So to do the three-way Skinner blend, I'm going to cut diagonally down through the two end pieces and straight down through the yellow. I'll lift that piece on top of there, that piece on top of there, and the two yellow pieces. Now this is not going to match up evenly, and I'm not worried about that, because when you start putting it through the pasta machine, as most of you will know, it all starts to change at that stage. So we're just putting them together, roughly squishing them together, so they make the very basics of oblong shape with most of the orange there, and then we'll add more of the yellow in until we get down to that side. I'm then going to fold that in half, simply because I haven't rolled it to make sure the clay doesn't all fall apart when we put it through the pasta machine. And now that I've got it 4 thicknesses of clay, I'm going to put it back fold first through the pasta machine on one setting thicker, so setting number 2 on my machine. And as it comes through, I will collect it in my hand, fold the bottom to top, and put it back fold first through the pasta machine. Keep doing that, folding bottom to top, put it back through fold first, and you'll end up with a nice smooth blend from one colour to the next. So I will go and get that done, and I'll bring you back when I've got that blend completed. Once you've got a nice blend, we're going to either chop it or fold it in two. Lay the two halves on top of each other, and then put through the orange end first on the same setting that we've just been using, so in my case setting number 2, so you get a longer strip. I'm now going to put it down to my thinnest usable setting to get as long and thin a strip as I can. Because my machine's a good one, I will put it straight down to setting number 9. If you know your machine is more likely to shred or tear your clay, then work slowly down, one setting at a time, till you get to your thinnest usable setting. There we go, nice long thin strip. And all we're going to do is from the white end, we're just going to roll this one upwards into a round cane. I'm not overly worried about it being uneven at this end, because you can just roll it wider till it becomes the same width as your cane. And just roll it up, making sure you're trapping no air as you roll. Flatten down and neaten off any ends, and then we're going to chop this down into quarters. With each quarter, just pull the darker colour up and slightly round the outside, and then pinch in the bottom to make it longer and thinner, so that sort of shape. Repeat with all 4 pieces. And then 2 at a time, put 2 pieces together, pinch just at the bottom. Next 2 pieces, pinch just at the bottom. And then all 4 pieces together, pinching just at the bottom. And now you can pull over the tops to make it into a triangular shape. I just flatten down the ends to neaten them down. So what we're going to do now is we are going to change the shape of this slightly. So with your finger in the back, just pull that up and round to create a groove, and then pull it round, so we're going to end up with more of a diamond shape. We're cutting this piece into 2, and we're looking to make a cane that's about 1.5 or 2 inches in length, so about 4 to 5 centimetres, something like that. So this needs to be twice the length of that. So I'm going to pull it out slightly. I'm then going to take one of my sheets of the dark blue, which at the moment has gone through on setting number 3, and I'm going to put this onto my thinnest usable setting, because we want a sheet to go and cover around most of the outside of this. Lay your sheet down, chop it off so it's the right size, neaten up one end, and I'm going to put this not quite down to the point where the white is, so part way down one side, roll it over, trying to make sure they've got no air gaps, and then I'm going to chop it off before it quite reaches the end. So we've got some of that white showing through there as well. I'm now just going to elongate this. So rather than being a diamond, if those are the 2 points either side of the sides, we're just going to flatten that down. Check our size. So I want this about 4 inches, which is what it is. Chop down the middle. And those will be our 2 pieces. So I'm going to put them together at the moment like that. Don't worry about the ends looking messy. But what I'm going to do is, with a little bit of this blue, roll this back up into a log. When it's just over size of just over 1/4 inch, or sort of about 1/2 centimetre wide, I'm just with my fingers going to make a little triangular shape so that when I press it down this becomes a triangle. And then taking our piece, I'm going to cut one shape that goes in between those 2 pieces there. Another one that's the same height, but this one I'm going to chop straight down the middle. And then half of that goes on one side and half of it goes on the other side. And if you pinch those together, create a triangular shape, that is our first element completed and the corner of our cane. Our next Skinner blend is going to be simply 2 colours, the green and the yellow. Again, they were put through setting number 3, so medium setting on the pasta machine. I've just got the 2 colours, so we're just going to chop down, turn them around and put them back together. As always, fold in half, put back through the pasta machine, fold, put through, fold and put through till we get a nice Skinner blend from one side to the other. So again, I'll bring you back when I've got that one done. Once your blend is done, as before, chop in 2, lay one on top of the other, and we're going to do exactly the same to this, through on the same setting, so setting number 2, darker end first, so the green end first, then through down to the thinnest usable setting on your pasta machine. So I'll go straight down to that stage and bring you back when I've done that. So there's our nice long piece of clay. With some of the blue we had working previously, I'm just going to take a tiny bit, and what we're going to do is going to do a little central core of the dark blue, very, very small, so it's only going to look like a dot in the finished piece. So just roll some out till you've got a size you're happy with. You want to make it the same height as your strip, even if this end bit isn't. Effectively ignore the end bit, and then you can start rolling that up, again nice and tight, with the blue in the middle. Again, press down, neaten the ends, take the rest of your leftover bits and pieces that you've got, and we want just a thin layer to go around the outside. I'm not going to go quite my thinnest, so I'm going to do it on setting number 7, and I'll just very roughly with my hands put my clay so it's more or less the right height, so that now if I put it through that way I will automatically have a piece that's more or less the right height to cover around our cane. So there we go. Chop the end off neatly. Use your blade to measure down the sides. And you just want one layer to go all the way around that one. What we're now going to do is we're going to reduce this down to make it a really nice long thin log of clay, and then we're going to chop off pieces that are the same height as the element that we're already working with. If you can, keep it fairly even, but don't worry too much. You don't want it tiny, tiny and quite large, because that will show up in the final pattern. But just roughly the right size is fine. If you ever have any problems when you're reducing something down like that, if you take a small tile, turn it over and roll that over the top, it keeps it nice and flat for you. So take off the little bit of distorted bit on the end. Let's just chop ourselves some pieces. So I've got 8 and a little bit left over, so I'm going to put the leftover bit on one side because we can add that into the design later on. And then all I'm going to do is to put these together fairly randomly. Just to make a little blob of colours. So that's our second element done. For the next element, we're going to do a blend of these 4 colours. So because we've got a blend of 4, the 2 on the end are going to go through diagonally, and the 2 in the middle are going to be straight. The reason I've put the white in between the yellow and the purple here is if those 2 colours mix, they'll make a very sort of greyy, browny colour, and I'd rather not have that. So I'm going to try and make sure that I don't get a mix of those 2. So as you can see there, I've put it together in such a way that we'll get a mix of the purple going down to the white, but we haven't got a place where the purple and the yellow overlap. And I'll make sure when each time I fold it top to bottom that I don't let those 2 colours overlap. As before, fold in half, put back through the pasta machine in order to get yourself a Skinner blend, and I'll put this through to the stage in which we've got our nice blend. So there we have our nice blend. What I'm actually going to do now is to fold it in half again and put it through on a thicker setting and thicker again, because what I want to get is a piece that's as high as the pieces we're working on and as thick as I can possibly get. So I'll put it through on the next setting thicker to start with, so that's setting number 1. So as we can see there, it's still too wide, so I'll try it on my thickest setting, which for me is setting 0. Now that's not far off, so what I'm going to do now, I'll fold it back up, but I'm actually just going to pull it slightly longer. Put it back, always fold first on that same setting of 0, my thickest one. And again, not far off, nearly there. Same again, put it back, stretch it ever so slightly. And now we're not far off. Anywhere where it's slightly thinner, just pull it so that it fits. And that's just about perfect. So I'm going to put this on here. We're working to just over 2 inches. So I'm just going to neaten this up slightly. Taking him off just for a second, I'm going to get one of my strips of blue. So again, these are one of the ones, the quarter packs that I put through on setting number 3. I'm going to put it back through the pasta machine that way in on a thin setting, so setting number 8 on my machine, to see if I can get a piece that's twice the height. Because what we want to do is we want to wrap this either side in the blue. So it's not quite big enough to do it in one fell swoop. So what I'll do is I'll put that on, cut away the excess, and then put that back through on setting number 8 till I've got a piece that will do this side as well. If you ever see air bubbles, try and get them out with your finger if you can. If you can't, you can just pop them either with the tip of your craft knife or with a needle if you've got one. And now we have our strip, which is the right height, nicely covered in the dark blue. So we are just going to swirl this in some random pattern, and we're also going to take what we've got left of the blue at the moment, still leaving completely our last sheet. And just roll this up again into sausage, probably about 3 times the height of this. So if that's more or less 2 inches, we're looking for something about 6 inches. Chop it into 3. and then start folding this just randomly inside your sheet of clay. So this is going to concertina back and forwards on itself, and then every so often I will just put in one of those blue pieces. If you can, it's quite nice to leave at least one of the ends with the colour showing, so that if that goes on the edge of our cane when we kaleidoscope, it will become a continuous pattern. So that's another piece of our pattern done. The next skinny blend is the lavender and the white, and because it's just two colours, again, just the diagonals, put the two together and make your skinner blend. As before, get it till you've got a nice blend, cut in two, put it through on your same setting to get a longer strip, then all the way down to your thinnest usable setting to get the longest strip you can, and I'll bring you back when I've got to that stage. This time, rather than rolling it up, we are going to concertina it from one end backwards and forwards. So we're going probably about ½ an inch, just over 1 centimetre wide, and I'm folding it backwards and forwards. If you can, try to make sure you don't trap any air in the folds as you go. And if you want to be neater than me, then feel free. I'm working on the basis that once I've done it, I can neaten it off by pressing it down. And what we're going for is a small sort of oblong shape. Having done that, if you've got one, find the little piece left over from the bit we did earlier. If you haven't got one of these leftover bits, then just simply use a bit of dark clay. But we're just going to pop him in there by pulling those two bits down, using the cable needle to press down in both sides to create a groove, and then that just sits in the groove. Take your remaining piece of dark blue clay, put it through your thinnest usable setting, so again setting number 9 on my machine. And you want just a small piece that's going to go from halfway down your piece down towards the white side of the cane. If you've got long enough, like I have there actually, put your two pieces back together and simply use that to fold all the way around. Now, because I wasn't planning to do this in one fell swoop, I was going to do it in two separate bits. It's a bit narrow there, so all I'm going to do is very gently pull it wider and just get it so it wraps all the way around the whole piece. Chop off when it overlaps at the bottom. We're now going to change this into a diamond shape simply by pressing in with our fingers, so it becomes sort of more square. You can then reduce this as a square shape, and we're going to reduce this until it is 6 inches long, because we're going to cut it into 3 equal parts. So all I'm doing is with my fingers just working down backwards and forwards till I get it to the size I want. So when you've got it roughly to the size you want, I'm just going to cut off the ends where the blue had pulled back slightly, and then that leaves us with 3 pieces. With each one, I'm taking that as being the bottom and therefore these being the sides, and I'm just gently pressing in the sides just to change the shape slightly, so that we can then put 2 of the pieces together with the white at the bottom, and the third bit sits inside. Check height-wise whether it's roughly the same with your other pieces, and if it is, then that's piece number 4 done. Our final piece are the 2 blues, and again exactly the same as we did before, a Skinner blend, and we're going to do that all the way through till we've got that nice long thin strip. So get that done. Once you've got your nice long strip, just as we did last time, concertina it backwards and forwards about 1/2 inch, 1 and a bit centimetres wide. When we've got our plug of clay, find the sheet you'd done earlier on that thin setting, so setting number 9 on my machine, of the blue clay, and wrap this one completely in the dark blue. Deciding which way you want to do it, I'm going to take my cable needle and I'm going to press hard into the side which has got the lighter blue. Then pull that back. That gives you a sort of triangular shape, and if you then put your finger in the top and press back, you'll be left with a little groove. Take a little bit of the dark blue clay and roll a sausage big enough to fit in that groove. Pinch at the top till you've got more of a diamond shape going on, and then we're going to pinch this one, pressing in. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing with my thumbs and fingers until this is about 4 inches wide, because we want 2 of these pieces to fit into our cane. Again, if you've got distorted ends, it needs to be 4 inches, not counting those. Drop down between the two, and put your 2 pieces together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another bit of the dark blue. So I've still got a little bit left. And as we did before, making your fingers into a point, just press down to give yourself a triangular shape, which we're going to fit in between those two, so that we can then just pull them back slightly to create more of a pattern in the top. So you should have a little bit of blue left. Our first element, our second, third, fourth and fifth. And now it's just a case of putting them all together to make a nice kaleidoscope cane. So I'm going to get that as one corner of our triangle, that as another. Actually, that's quite triangular. Let's do that as that side. Let's pop him in there and see if we can somehow fit that one in there. So what I need to do now is have a look and see if there's any particularly big gaps, and the only really big gap I've got is there. So with the rest of my blue clay, I'm just going to create a sort of a flattened topped triangle to fit slightly in there, and then I'm going to let polymer clay do the rest, and we are going to fill in all the rest of those holes by making a triangular cane. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing in at the middle so that any air gaps in here, the air will get pushed out and all those holes will actually fill in. And then we can start reducing our cane in a triangular shape. What I'll do to start with, before I start, I'll make sure that if I've got a white line at the top, it is equidistant all the way along. Same with that, I'm going to make sure if that's off to that side slightly, it's off to that side, so the point is actually going to be halfway down that on both sides. And the same with this again, so at the moment the point's going to be between those two, so I'll make sure the point is between those two there. And lastly, with this green line, so I might actually even press that down to open it up slightly. So I'm going to try and make sure that I get this green line nice and straight as I reduce, because then it will kaleidoscope nicely. So all I'm going to do now is, by pressing in along the sides and gently sort of pulling it at the same time, I'll reduce this till we get a nice cane, and I'm going to reduce it until each of these sides is about 1 inch width. When I'm close to the size I want, I'm going to chop off the larger ends, most of which have just got a bit of distortion on them. So put those to one side, great bit of scrap clay, or do whatever you want to do with them. And then I'm just going to chop probably halfway, just so we get a good idea of the pattern and the kaleidoscope that we are going to get. So I've taken the first half and I've reduced it down until it's an equal 1 inch across all of the sides of the cane. I'm going to put that one to one side for a second. With the second part, having taken off the wastage from either end where it had become distorted, I've then made this into as much of a right-angled cane as I need to in order to put this together into a square cane. And all I did by making it right-angled was by deciding which bit I wanted at the corner to be 90 degrees, laying it down, and then just pressing the clay down to create a nice straight edge coming up this side, and then obviously reversing in the opposite direction going that way. And then when you've got it flat like that, try and make sure that this centre point, and again this is when the measuring sheet comes in handy, is going to be over the midpoint when you go down. So with these two I'm going to create veneers. This one I'm going to put through into a square cane. I'll do that in a minute. Firstly though, we're going to do this one, which is still the equilateral triangle. But before we do that, just to show you the patterns that you could make if you don't want to do it into a veneer, I've cut off 6 slices and made up the little hexagon. So 6 in that one. That's with the green in the middle, obviously the orange in the middle, and that's with the purple point in the middle. So those are the patterns that you would get. You could just cut nice thick slices of your cane, but generally when you're doing a veneer it's to go on something, so you don't need to see the underneath. So because of that, I've taken all those leftover distorted scrappy ends of the clay, put them through the pasta machine to give myself a nice plain colour, and I've put this through on quite a thin setting, so setting number 6 on my pasta machine. And this is just going to be the sheet that we're then going to work on to create our veneer of triangles. So I've left this to sit for a little while, so it's nicely rested, about 20 minutes or so. And then I'm just going to start taking nice slices off the top. It's more important when you're doing a veneer for the slices to be even than a certain thickness, so do whatever size that you feel comfortable with. I'm going to take a couple off to start with, then I'm going to pull it away and do it close to me, because I always look right over the top when I'm taking my slices. And of course I can't do that because my head would get in the way and you wouldn't see what I'm doing. So I'll do a couple to the side and then move it away. So in actual fact, I've done 24 because I did them in 4 different bits, and each time I did cut 6 slices and then pulled the cane down so that I could see what I was doing and I didn't get too much in the way of distortion. So now I can begin, and what I'll also do when it's a hot sticky day, which it is here, I'll just lift up the corners just to make it easier just to lift them up and take them apart. When you're putting them together, when it's something like this, obviously it's very easy to see which way they go together. But take your time, match them carefully. I will usually do 2 or 3 pieces at a time. For the first one, I will normally do a hexagon of 6, which means I'll work on 3 pieces at a time. And then after that, I will work in smaller pieces. So just carefully match them together. If you haven't got a straight line, then with the blunt side of your blade, being very careful not to get your fingers near the sharp side, just straighten it up to give yourself a starting point. This one's actually gone for the green in the middle, so we will carry on doing that. And when you put it together, the reason I do that is so that when you put it together, you tend to always put it together more neatly on the top than you would on the bottom. So by checking which side goes where, you know you're going to have a nice neat top. The reason I like doing it on these sheets and on an extra bit of clay is that you can bend the whole thing over, so you can really manoeuvre easily to place your pieces together. So that's your first 6 done. I will quite often as well, when I'm going back in, just to neaten up any edges and straighten them off where you're about to join another piece on. So what I'll do now is I'm going to add a bit onto this one. So this one's got the orange in the middle. If you do find you have cut one which is very thin, I will tend to leave these pieces to do an outside piece. So we've got the orange, which will fit that way. So now I know I need to go around this way. And then we've got our last 2 pieces to fit in there to create that one. So again, that's that way. Therefore that is that way. And just gently press them into place. So I will continue doing that all the way down with my large triangles, creating the whole veneer. And then if you wanted to do a square piece, I'll come back and show you just how I managed to fill it in, so we end up doing a nice square or oblong piece. So I'll fast forward through the next bit and bring you back, say, when we've got just those edges to fill in. So there are the 24 pieces all put together, and one of the things you're doing, which I forgot to do when I was putting the 2 pieces into here and had to have a quick sort of move around, is with the triangles, they actually give you lines going that way, and that way. So if you constantly try and keep those nice and neat, then you'll find you can add the pieces in quite easily. So what we need to do now, we need to cut some extra pieces, but I'm not going to need all of them, because of course I'm only going to need half of them in here. So I'm going to keep a straight line here, and just neaten up these edges. So effectively I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more slices, and then we can chop them off to make a nice square veneer. So I've chopped most of the excess clay off, chopped off the excess from the slices that I didn't need, and now very gently I'm just going to, with the edge of my cable needle, just roll over all the joins, working down one line at a time. Anywhere where it needs to be sort of pushed in to join up, just do that gently and just work your way over the whole sheet. Then put a little either cling film, or if you've got one of these easy leave sheets, something like that, over it, and either with the stainless steel soap or with the side of your roller, just gently in little sort of round motions, just sort of make sure the clay is nicely pushed into the same height. because what you're trying to do is to make it even without distorting the pattern too much. So small circles are best to start with, and once we've got that done we can go over it with the roller and go over it in straight lines, and then as a finish I will take the sheet off to make sure there's no creases actually placed in with the sheet and go over it with a roller. For the final roll I'll just neaten off any edges, push them back in, and then I will carefully make sure my roller is nice and clean and roll from the edges inwards, so I'm not again distorting any of those edges I've just neatened off. Cut away any last bits of the underneath clay. Once it's removed from the sheet, you can always just gently pull it to create a nice even shape. So there's your triangular veneer finished, and there are the 3 hexagons it would make if you simply took your 6 slices. Now let's move on to the right angled cane and see about making a square cane. So we've got our right angled cane. I've placed it equidistant across some squares, so I know that when I chop down through, that'll be halfway, and then we can put it together and join it up. Have a look down the underneath. There's not much in the way of registration lines, but there's that simple green line, so I'm going to try and marry up that green line as I go all the way down until I come to this side as well. And now we're going to press that in until it becomes a nice square cane. As before, we're going to reduce this one down, and this one we're going to reduce down till it's about 3/4 of an inch in size. As soon as you're pretty close to where you want to be, just with your thumb and finger, pinch the corners to make them really nice and sharp, just to make it easier when we're actually putting our squares together. When you've done that, roll down each side so that if you've now got any finger marks in, you've taken them out, and also that helps give really sharp corners. Put it back on and check it's the right size. So again, I've got a sheet just of leftover scrap clay, nice thin setting, about setting number 6. So because I'm making a veneer, I'm going to take my slices and put them on here. And for this one, I will take, again, 24 slices, so we can see what we get if we get 24 slices of the square one. And then just the same as with the triangles, simply pick them up, match them together, because it's much easier matching square shapes, or in this case oblong, because that's the thing, when it is very hot, which it is today, it automatically tends to change shape when you cut through. Once you've got a line in place, exactly the same as before, just use the blunt side of your blade to neaten it up, just to make it easier and better when you add all the other slices on. So I'll carry on putting all these on till you see the pattern come through. As before, when you finish putting all your pattern together, I'm just going to take off some of the excess clay, use my cable needle to run down and smooth between the lines, and then use some of the wrap to go over the top and then smooth it down with both the stainless steel soap and the ruler, and I'll bring you back when we've got our sheet all nicely done. So here's the square finished in your Kaleidoscope veneer, and just in case you wanted to do it just little individual squares, those would be the 3 different patterns you would have coming out. As you can see, this one's got a very strong diagonal feel to it, and that's what normally happens when you have a square cane, particularly if it's a square cane that's come down from a triangle. So let's have a look at both of them side by side. So there we are, the two veneers with triangles and done with squares. So you can see there the difference you get in the patterns. That's it for now, because now it's just a case of you making your own and then doing something fabulous with the veneers and hopefully having lots of fun practicing your Kaleidoscope canes. So that's it. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and a particular thank you for those of you who subscribe. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now. Bye.